He looks her dead in the eye and says, without a flicker of shame, that he gambles every single day and doesn't plan to stop. Not now, not ever, not even for her. The air in the room turns heavy, Laura's jaw tightens, and for a split second, you can see her entire future flash behind her eyes. Wedding dresses, shared bank accounts, the American dream, all suddenly teetering on the edge of a roulette wheel. The silence that follows is so thick you could slice it with a credit card, and in that moment, nothing will ever be the same for her again. This isn't just a red flag. It's a 5-alarm fire. And Laura is standing right in the middle of it, clutching a bucket that's already leaking hope. Welcome to Reality Sport. I'm Oliva. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and drop your wildest 90-day Fiancé prediction in the comments, because tonight's story is about to test every limit you thought you had for reality TV drama. We're not talking about a little secret debt or a harmless poker night with the boys. We're talking about a man who treats gambling like oxygen, who sees every dollar as a lottery ticket, and who's about to tie his financial fate to a woman who still believes love can fix anything. The stakes? Only her entire future. Her savings, her sanity, and maybe even her shot at happiness in America. But how did we get to this moment, where Laura's heart is pounding and her dreams are suddenly up for grabs? Let's rewind, just for a second, to the start of this wild ride. Laura, bright-eyed and hopeful, lands in a new country with her suitcase full of gifts and her head full of wedding plans. She's ready to build a life, to blend cultures, to prove that love can cross oceans and outlast any visa deadline. But from the moment she steps off the plane, something feels off. Her fiancé barely meets her gaze, his phone is always buzzing, and every time she asks about his job, he changes the subject or cracks a joke. The first dinner is awkward, the second is tense, and by the third, Laura is already counting the number of times he's dodged a straight answer. Still, she pushes forward, because that's what hope does. It fills in the blanks, paints over the cracks, and tells you that maybe, just maybe, you're overthinking things. But then the money talk starts, and suddenly, the cracks are too big to ignore. He admits he's in debt, but shrugs it off like it's no big deal. His friends look away, the room gets colder, and Laura starts to wonder if she's the only one who didn't get the memo about his financial mess. But before she can process it, he whisks her away on a surprise romantic getaway, complete with castle walls, sea views, and enough fairy tale charm to make anyone forget their worries for a night. And that's when he drops the bomb. In the soft glow of sunset, with the world looking picture perfect, he tells her the truth. He gambles every day, and he's not planning to stop. Not for her, not for marriage, not for a fresh start in America. He says it like he's talking about his favorite food, not the habit that could bankrupt them both. Laura's face falls, her hands start to shake, and you can see the calculation happening in real time. Can she live with this? Can she fix this? Or is she about to become the safety net for a man who treats risk like a lifestyle? The tension is electric, the stakes are sky high, and the question hanging in the air is almost too big to say out loud. Is this love, or is this the setup for a financial disaster? Laura's first instinct is to freeze, to buy herself a little more time, to hope that maybe, if she asks the right questions or says the right thing, he'll see the danger and promise to change. But as the silence stretches, and the reality of his words sinks in, you have to wonder, will Laura run for the exit? Or will she convince herself that love is worth the gamble? And if she stays, what will it cost her? Laura steps off the plane with her heart pounding and her mind racing through every possible version of the future, the kind where love conquers all and the kind where it quietly falls apart. She's got gifts in her bag, hope in her eyes, and 1,000 tiny worries she's trying to ignore. The airport is loud, but the silence between her and her fiancé is louder. He greets her with a quick hug, barely meeting her gaze, and for a moment, she wonders if jet lag is making her paranoid or if something is already off. The car ride is filled with small talk and long pauses, the kind that make you question if you're really as close as you thought you were. Every time she tries to catch his eye, he's looking at his phone or out the window, and Laura starts to feel like a guest in her own relationship. Dinner that night is a masterclass in awkwardness. He orders for her without asking, laughs a little too hard at his own jokes, and when she asks about his work, he waves it off with a story about how hard things have been since the shisha bars closed. Laura nods, trying to be supportive, but the details don't add up. He talks about owning 3 bars, then 2. Then suddenly, he's just a manager, not an owner. The numbers change, the timeline shifts, and Laura's gut starts to whisper that something isn't right. She glances at his friends, hoping for a little reassurance, but all she gets are tight smiles and quick glances at the floor. One friend tries to change the subject, another checks his watch, and Laura is left wondering if she's the only one who doesn't know the real story. The next morning, Laura wakes up early, hoping for a fresh start, but the tension lingers like a bad dream. She tries to talk about the future, about jobs and plans and where they'll live, but every answer is vague, every promise is wrapped in a joke or a shrug. When she asks about his debt, he laughs it off, says everyone has a little debt, and changes the subject to the weather. Laura wants to believe him, wants to trust that he's telling her the truth, but the math doesn't work and the stories don't line up. She starts to wonder if she's seeing red flags, or if she's just scared of being alone. Maybe she's overthinking, maybe she's being too harsh, maybe love is supposed to be a little messy. But then, out of nowhere, he announces a surprise romantic getaway. He's booked a castle, planned a weekend by the sea, and suddenly all the tension melts away, at least for a moment. Laura wants to believe this is love, that he's trying to make things right, but the timing feels too perfect. Why now, right after the debt conversation? Why the sudden burst of romance when things were starting to get uncomfortable? She tries to push the doubts aside, tells herself that maybe he's just trying to show her a good time, that maybe she's reading too much into it. But the question lingers, is this a genuine gesture, or is he trying to distract her from the truth? As they drive to the castle, Laura's mind races with possibilities. Is she being manipulated? Or is she just unlucky? Is he hiding something? Or is life really just this complicated? She wants to ask, wants to demand answers, but every time she gets close, he turns up the charm, makes her laugh, and the doubts fade into the background. Laura keeps giving him another chance, keeps hoping that the next conversation will be the one where everything makes sense, where the stories line up and the future feels safe. But deep down, she knows she's gambling with her own heart, and the odds are starting to look worse by the day. Why does she keep betting on him, even when every sign is telling her to walk away? The castle looks like something out of a storybook, all ancient stone and sweeping views. The kind of place where you'd expect a proposal, not a confession. Laura tries to let herself enjoy it, lets him take her hand and spin her around in the courtyard, lets herself laugh at his princess jokes, even though her stomach is tight with nerves. The sea glimmers in the distance, the air smells like salt and possibility, and for a few hours, it almost feels like the start of something magical. He's attentive, charming, snapping photos of her against the castle walls, making her feel like the center of his world. Laura wants to believe this is real, that the tension from the last few days is behind them, that maybe this is the moment everything turns around. But as the sun starts to set, the mood shifts. He leads her to a quiet bench overlooking the water, his voice softer, his eyes finally meeting hers. Laura feels her heart pick up, senses something big is coming, but she's not ready for what he says next. He tells her, almost casually, that he gambles every day. Not sometimes, not when he's bored, but every single day, whenever he has money. He says it like he's talking about his morning coffee, not the habit that's been eating away at their future. Laura's breath catches, her mind scrambling to process what she's hearing. She tries to read his face, searching for guilt or shame, but he's calm, almost proud, as if this is just another quirky detail about himself. The disconnect is jarring. Laura feels the ground shift beneath her, the fairy tale setting suddenly turning cold and unfamiliar. She wants to scream, to demand how he could keep this from her, but all she can do is stare, her thoughts racing. Is this why the stories never added up? Is this why the debt kept growing? Why the job situation was always so vague? She remembers every moment he dodged her questions, every time he changed the subject, and it all starts to make a terrible kind of sense. The timing of his confession isn't lost on her. He waited until she was relaxed, until the world felt safe, until she was surrounded by beauty and romance. It's almost strategic, the way he chose this moment, as if he knew the truth would land softer here, cushioned by the fantasy he built around them. Laura's mind flashes back to the last few days, to every time he made her laugh right after a tense conversation, to every sweet gesture that followed a red flag. She realizes this isn't the first time he's used romance to soften reality, to make the hard truths feel less dangerous. It's a pattern, and now that she sees it, she can't unsee it. She wonders what else he's hiding, what other secrets are waiting for the perfect moment to come out. If he can drop this bomb so calmly, what's stopping him from keeping even bigger things from her? The trust she thought they were building suddenly feels paper thin, and Laura is left with a choice she never wanted to make. Does she confront him, demand answers, and risk shattering the fragile peace they've built? Does she run, cut her losses, and protect herself before it's too late? Or does she freeze, hoping that if she waits long enough, the truth will somehow become easier to live with? The castle walls feel closer now, the sea darker, and Laura knows that whatever she decides next will change everything. Every time the truth threatens to break the surface, he finds a way to smooth it over, like a magician distracting the crowd with a flourish while the real trick happens out of sight. After the confession, Laura sits in stunned silence, but he doesn't let the moment linger. He cracks a joke about how she's his lucky charm, pulls her in for a selfie with the castle behind them, and suddenly the tension is replaced by forced laughter and the click of a camera. The mood shifts so quickly, it almost feels unreal, as if the confession never happened, as if the only thing that matters is capturing the perfect memory for social media. Laura lets herself be pulled along, smiling for the photos, laughing at his stories, telling herself that maybe things aren't as bad as they seem. This isn't the first time she's felt this whiplash. Every difficult conversation, every uncomfortable truth is followed by a reset, a sweet gesture, a romantic dinner, a night out that ends with promises and soft words. He never lets the hard moments breathe, never gives her space to sit with her doubts. Instead, he waits until she's relaxed, until the world feels safe again, and only then does he open the door to real talk. It's a pattern so subtle that Laura almost misses it, but now, looking back, she sees it everywhere. The timing is always in his hands, the narrative always shaped to protect the connection, not the truth. Laura tries to make sense of it all, telling herself she's processing, that she needs time to think, that it's normal to have doubts in a relationship this complicated. She reframes the problems, turns red flags into challenges, tells herself that love is about patience and understanding. She wants to believe that he's being honest now, that the worst is behind them, that if she just gives him a little more time, things will get better. But the doubts keep creeping in, whispering that maybe she's not processing at all, maybe she's just delaying the inevitable. The audience watching at home is split. Some feel nothing but sympathy for Laura, seeing a woman caught between hope and reality, trying to make the best of a bad situation. Others are frustrated, shouting at their screens, wondering how many chances she'll give before she finally walks away. And then there are those who feel a quiet fear, recognizing their own patterns in Laura's hesitation, knowing how easy it is to mistake emotional resets for real progress. The debate rages on in the comments, everyone convinced they do things differently. But the truth is, until you're in Laura's shoes, you never really know how you'll react when love and fear collide. If you were Laura, would you stay and hope for change? Or would you cut your losses before the next bomb drops? Because the next reveal is coming. And this time, it's not just about money or trust, it's about the future they're building together, and whether it's built on hope or on quicksand. He paints a picture so vivid, Laura almost believes it herself. A life together in America, a steady job, a shared apartment, weekends spent exploring new cities, and a bank account that's always balanced because he promises to keep his gambling under control. He lays it all out like a business plan, breaking down imaginary paychecks, dividing up expenses, and reassuring her that he'll only use a small fixed amount for his bets. The rest, he says, will be theirs, safe and untouched, as if discipline is something you can just switch on with a wedding ring. Laura listens, nodding along, wanting so badly to trust that this time he means it, that this time the future he's selling is more than a fantasy. But as he talks, Laura can't help but notice the cracks in the story. None of the money exists yet. The job is still a promise, the salary just a number he pulled from thin air. Every plan depends on things falling perfectly into place. On visas, on luck, on the hope that his habits will magically change once they're married. He talks about control, about setting limits, but every example he gives is hypothetical. Every solution a promise for tomorrow. Laura's fear grows with every word, the weight of shared responsibility pressing down on her. If he slips, if the bets go bad, if the job falls through, it won't just be his problem anymore. It'll be hers too. The risk isn't just financial, it's emotional, legal, and permanent. He tells her, with total confidence, that he'll stop gambling once he wins big, once he feels successful again, once he's proven to himself and to her that he can do it. But the finish line keeps moving, always just out of reach, always tied to the next big win that never quite comes. Laura wants to believe him, wants to believe that love and commitment will be enough to change him, but deep down, she knows that hope can be a dangerous thing. Is she holding on because she truly believes in their future, or is she just afraid to let go of the dream she's built in her head? The line between hope and denial blurs, and Laura finds herself trapped in a cycle of promises and illusions, each one more convincing than the last. She wonders how many times she'll have to hear the same speech, how many times she'll have to pretend that things are different, that this time will be the last time. The fantasy is seductive, but reality is waiting just around the corner, ready to test every promise, every plan, every fragile hope she's been clinging to. What happens when the dream finally collides with the truth, and Laura has to choose between the future she wants and the reality she can't ignore? Laura sits with the truth, turning it over in her mind like a stone she can't put down, feeling every sharp edge, but still hoping it will smooth out if she holds it long enough. She tells herself she's being rational, that she's weighing the risks, but every time she gets close to a decision, she finds a way to soften the blow. She admits to herself that his gambling scares her, that the debt makes her uneasy, that the future he's promising feels more like a gamble than a guarantee. But then, she remembers the good moments, the laughter, the way he looks at her when he thinks she's not watching, and suddenly the fear feels smaller, easier to ignore. She tells herself that every relationship has its challenges, that maybe this is just theirs, that love is supposed to be hard sometimes. The cycle is relentless. Silence stretches between them after every hard conversation. But instead of breaking it, Laura lets it linger, convincing herself that patience is a virtue, that giving him space will help him change. Fear creeps in late at night, whispering that she's making a mistake. But by morning, hope has taken its place, promising that things will get better if she just holds on a little longer. Hope turns into delay, and delay becomes the new normal, a way to avoid the pain of making a choice she doesn't want to face. She starts to measure time in apologies and second chances, in the space between promises and reality, always waiting for the moment when everything will finally fall into place. But the cost of waiting is starting to add up. Laura feels it in the pit of her stomach, in the way she flinches every time her phone buzzes with a new bill, in the way she hesitates before sending money or making plans. The emotional labor is exhausting, always being the one to forgive, to understand, to hope. The financial risk is real. Every dollar she invests in their future, feeling less like a step forward and more like a bet she can't afford to lose. And then there's the legal side, the paperwork and the promises. The knowledge that if she signs on the dotted line, she's not just marrying a man, she's marrying his problems, his debts, his habits. How much would you risk for love? That's the question Laura keeps asking herself, the one that keeps her up at night. The one that makes her heart race every time she thinks about walking away. She wants to believe that love is worth the risk, that the future they've dreamed about is still possible, but the cracks are getting harder to ignore. Every day, her breaking point inches closer, the weight of hope and fear pressing down until something has to give. Laura knows she can't keep living in limbo forever, and the next decision she makes will change everything, one way or another. Viewers are glued to their screens, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others clutching their chests in sympathy, and a few quietly terrified, because Laura's story feels a little too familiar. The comment section is a storm of opinions. One person is furious, typing in all caps that Laura needs to run. Another is begging her to see her own worth. And someone else is whispering that they've been there too. That they know exactly how hard it is to walk away when your heart is still holding on. There's a reason this story hits so many nerves. It's not just about Laura and her fiancé. It's about every person who's ever ignored a red flag because the alternative, admitting the dream is over, hurts more than any risk. People want to believe they do things differently, that they'd spot the warning signs and make the smart choice, but the truth is, most of us have stayed too long in something that wasn't working. Maybe it wasn't gambling or debt, maybe it was a partner who never really listened, or a job that drained the life out of you, or a friendship that only took and never gave back. The details change, but the feeling is the same. You see the problem, you know it's there, but you keep hoping it'll fix itself. That if you're patient enough, loving enough, strong enough, things will turn around. It's easier to believe in hope than to face heartbreak. Easier to wait for a miracle than to start over from scratch. That's the psychology of staying. Red flags are obvious in hindsight, but in the moment, they're easy to explain away. You tell yourself it's not that bad, that everyone has flaws, that love is about forgiveness and second chances. You remember the good times, the laughter, the promises, and you convince yourself that the bad stuff is temporary, that it'll pass if you just hang on a little longer. The fear of being alone, of starting over, of admitting you were wrong, is so much bigger than the fear of what might happen if you stay. So you stay, and you wait, and you hope. Even when every instinct is screaming at you to run. Laura is caught in that exact trap. She's not blind to the risks. She names them, talks about them, even admits to her friends that she's scared. But when it comes time to act, she hesitates. She tells herself she needs more information, more time, more proof that things won't change. She wants to believe that love can fix what's broken, that her patience will pay off. That the man she fell for is still in there somewhere, waiting to come back to her. It's a kind of emotional bargaining, a way to buy herself a little more time before she has to make the hard choice. The audience sees it all play out in real time, and the reactions are raw. Some people are angry, frustrated that Laura keeps giving him another chance, convinced that she's wasting her life on someone who doesn't deserve her. They want her to be strong, to walk away, to show everyone that self-respect matters more than romance. Others are softer, more understanding, remembering their own moments of weakness, their own desperate hope that things would get better. They see themselves in Laura, and they ache for her, wishing they could reach through the screen and tell her she's not alone. And then there are those who are scared, not for Laura, but for themselves. They see the pattern, the cycle of hope and disappointment, and they wonder if they're stuck in it too. They start to question their own relationships, their own choices, their own willingness to overlook the truth in favor of a fantasy. Laura's story becomes a mirror, reflecting back all the ways we convince ourselves to stay, all the ways we trade clarity for comfort, all the ways we let fear of the unknown keep us trapped in situations that aren't good for us. The tension builds as Laura's awareness grows. She knows what's at stake, knows what she stands to lose, but the pull of hope is strong. She wants to believe that this time will be different, that the next promise will be the one he keeps, that the future they've dreamed about is still within reach. But every time she chooses hope over action, the risk grows. The cost gets higher, and the chance for a clean break slips further away. The audience is left holding its breath, waiting to see if Laura will finally choose herself, or if she'll override her own instincts one more time. The next twist is coming, and it's the kind that changes everything. Maybe it's a new revelation, a secret that's been hiding in plain sight, or maybe it's the moment Laura finally reaches her breaking point. Whatever it is, it's going to force her to make a choice she's been avoiding for too long. The stakes have never been higher, and the outcome is anything but certain. Will fear finally outrank fantasy? Will Laura find the strength to walk away, or will she keep betting on a future that's never going to come? The answer is closer than she thinks, and when it comes, it's going to leave everyone, Laura, her fiancé, and every viewer watching, changed in ways they never expected. Laura stands at the edge of everything she thought she wanted. The castle walls and fairy tale sunsets now just a memory, replaced by the cold clarity of morning after. The truth is no longer something she can dodge or dress up with hope. It's right there in front of her. Undeniable, heavy, and demanding a decision. The relationship she built in her mind, one where love could fix anything, where patience would be rewarded, where the future was bright and safe, has been stripped down to its bare bones. What's left is a partnership built on shifting sand, where every promise is a placeholder, and every plan is a bet that never quite pays off. She looks at him, really looks, and sees not just the man she fell for, but the pattern she's been living inside. Every hard conversation followed by a reset, every red flag softened by a joke or a kiss, every moment of doubt drowned out by a new fantasy about tomorrow. The structure of their relationship isn't built on trust or shared goals, it's built on delay, on the hope that things will get better if she just waits long enough, forgives enough, loves enough. But now, with the stakes laid bare, Laura can't ignore the cost anymore. The emotional labor, the financial risk, the legal consequences, they're all hers to carry, and the weight is crushing. For the first time, she asks herself who really benefits from all this waiting. Is it him, who gets to keep living in the comfort of her patience, never forced to change because she's always there to catch him? Or is it her, clinging to the fantasy because the truth is too painful to face? The emotional jackpot isn't money or security, it's access. Access to her time, her energy, her willingness to believe in a future that only exists if she keeps ignoring the present. The longer she waits, the more she invests, the harder it becomes to walk away, and the easier it is for him to keep gambling with both their lives. But the last reversal is the hardest to swallow. The real risk was never just about money. It was never just about the debt or the job or the endless promises of a better tomorrow. The real risk was emotional, the slow erosion of Laura's confidence, her sense of safety, her ability to trust her own instincts. Every time she chose hope over action, every time she softened a red flag or reframed a problem, she gave up a little more of herself. The financial risk is real, but it's the emotional cost that lingers, the kind that doesn't show up on a bank statement but leaves scars all the same. As Laura faces the fallout, all the setups from before come full circle. The awkward silences, the shifting stories, the perfectly timed romantic gestures, they weren't random. They were the structure, the pattern that kept her hooked, always waiting for the next reset, the next promise, the next chance to believe. Now, with the truth exposed, she sees the cycle for what it is. She sees how easy it was to get lost in the fantasy, how hard it is to break free when every part of her wants to believe that love is enough. But this time, something is different. The fear that used to keep her stuck now feels like a warning she can't ignore. The hope that once felt like a lifeline now feels like a trap. Laura realizes that the only way forward is to trust herself, to believe that she deserves more than a future built on delay and denial. She doesn't have all the answers, and the road ahead is still uncertain, but for the first time, she's willing to choose clarity over comfort, action over hope, reality over fantasy. As she makes her decision, the impact ripples out beyond her own story. Viewers at home feel the shift, recognizing the moment when someone finally chooses themselves, when the cycle breaks and a new path opens up. Some feel relief, others sadness, but everyone understands the cost of staying too long, the price of believing in a future that never arrives. Laura's journey becomes a lesson, a warning, and a mirror for anyone who's ever traded their own happiness for the hope that things will change. But before you think this is where the story ends, remember, every relationship on this show runs on the same emotional currency. Future promises, delayed truth, and the silent cost of staying one step longer than you meant to. Laura's reckoning is just one chapter in a much bigger story, and if you think her situation was complicated, wait until you see what's coming next. Because in the next episode, another couple is about to face their own moment of truth. Their story looks different on the surface, different dreams, different secrets, different stakes, but underneath, it's the same game. One partner holding on to hope, the other holding on to control, both of them caught in a cycle of promises and resets that feels impossible to escape. The question isn't just who will win or lose, but who will finally see the pattern, who will break free, and who will pay the price for waiting too long. So if you've ever wondered how far someone will go to protect a fantasy, or how much it costs to keep believing in a future that never comes, you won't want to miss what happens next. The fallout from Laura's decision is still echoing, but the next twist is already on the horizon. And trust me, it's going to leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the real cost of staying in a relationship that's built on borrowed time. Stick around, because the next story is about to begin, and if you thought this one was wild, you haven't seen anything yet.